We're honored right now to be joined by Dr. Ben Carson, a retired neurosurgeon, former candidate for president who is now working and speaking out on behalf of Donald Trump for president. Dr. Carson, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. I just wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, from everything I'm seeing, the pendulum of momentum is swinging back in the direction of Donald Trump right now.
Oh, without question. He's moving very rapidly. You look at the size of the crowds, you look at their enthusiasm, and then you also have to recognize with the polls that are done, there's things that aren't really taken into account. For instance, a lot of people won't tell you that they're voting for Trump because they don't want you to think they're racist. And, that narrative has been just perpetuated throughout our society. Of course, it's completely false, but, people shy away from that designation.
Yeah, I've wondered about that undercurrent and whether or not they're not underestimating the number of people who are actually going to turn out and vote. I heard Governor Pence say at a speech yesterday, it's time to come home. If you're a Republican who's been on the fence or not sure what you're going to do, it's time for you to come home to prevent Hillary Clinton from getting in the White House. I hope that message resonates.
Well, if in fact you're a conservative or you're a person who loves the idea of America, it's time to come home. It's not really so much about Democrats and Republicans, I think. It's more about the political ruling class and we the people. And the political ruling class consists of both Democrats and Republicans, many of the never-Trump Republicans, who are much more comfortable with someone like Hillary Clinton, who is part of the structure with which they're familiar. And someone like Donald Trump represents an existential threat to their lifestyle.
Dr. Carson, when you see these stories that are coming out on WikiLeaks about the emails that have exposed the underbelly of the Clinton machine, I'll call it, with ties to the Clinton Foundation and getting money from this Teneo Corporation for Bill Clinton, millions and millions of dollars. How does that, do you think this impacts the election at this point? I hope Americans are paying attention, but I worry that there's so much information, some of the impact's being lost.
Well, the level of corruption is absolutely astonishing. But, there are three things that precede the downfall of great nations. Taking your eye off the ball, that is focusing on things that really are not critical, fiscal irresponsibility, and the acceptance of corruption at the highest levels. And it seems like we read the playbook and we've decided we want to go down that pathway. But I actually believe that the American people are smarter than that. I think the political class and the media are playing them for fools, and I don't think that they are. And I think you're going to be very surprised on Election Day.
I saw you speak at the Eagle Forum about a year ago, Phyllis Schlafly's organization, when she held her last Eagle Forum. There are a lot of people who considered themselves conservatives, who were strong supporters of you, who were strong supporters of Ted Cruz, who've now come on my radio show before and said, "I just can't do it. I can't bring myself to vote for Donald Trump." What is your message to those folks?
My message is, there are people who say I can't choose between the lesser of two evils. It offends my sensibilities. You have to realize that every day when you walk out of the house until you get back in bed, you're choosing between the lesser of evils because we live in an imperfect world. That's why we have a complex brain that can take consideration things that have gone on in the past, in the present, analyze them, and project them into the future. And when you project into the future the Democrat platform versus the Republican platform, and the ideas that Donald Trump is proposing versus the ones that Hillary Clinton is proposing, you see two very different Americas. That's what people need to think about. What are you subjecting your children and your grandchildren and all of our progeny to? It's not just about you and your sensibilities.
We're talking to Dr. Ben Carson. Let me switch to Obamacare for a moment. There's a report that came out today that showed that in Missouri there'll be anywhere from a 25 to 40% increase in premiums when the new premiums come out for these Obamacare policies. This thing is in a death spiral. And
Absolutely.
What do we do?
And of course, many of us predicted that. years ago. I mean, there was no way that this could work. The problem, of course, being that you rob Peter to pay Paul. And pretty soon you got no more money to take from Peter. So Paul is very happy, but nobody else is happy. That just doesn't work. You have to do things that work for everybody. And empowering people through health savings accounts, health empowerment accounts, you can use the same amount of money or less that we're using now and give people complete choice and freedom. You make relationships between patients and healthcare providers, which empowers them as well, but it also brings the system into the free market. You would still have to have catastrophic healthcare, but the cost of that's going to be drastically decreased because the only thing it's covering is catastrophic healthcare. How often do you have that?
Yeah.
This is the kind of model that really works. And it's similar to a model that they have in Singapore. It works extremely well at a fraction of the cost of our system.
I've tried to give the message to my listeners earlier that the stakes of this election, and I try to drive home, if you look at what's going to happen under Hillary Clinton in the Supreme Court with taxes and the economy and health care, it's just not acceptable. And that's why I'm hoping that we do see people who have been holding back a little bit that are going to come forward in this next week and a half and realize the decision they need to make.
I certainly hope that, but I have total confidence in the American people that they will do the right thing, that they will not be manipulated and fooled. And Thomas Jefferson said as much. He said that we would reach this point because of the system that we had. The people would be less vigilant. They would be paying attention to who's on Dancing with the Stars and who's playing in the World Series and not the real issues. And he didn't use those examples, but you get the point. And he said as a result of that, the government would do what all governments do, that is to grow, to metastasize, and to dominate. And our Constitution was put in the way it is to keep the government from doing that. But when the people are not vigilant, of course, that's what's going to happen. But he said just before we turned into another form of government, the people would recognize what they were about to lose, and they would step up to the plate. This is the time right now. If they don't do it now, it's not going to happen.
Dr. Carson, one last question. As somebody who's advising Donald Trump, what are you telling him to focus on this last week and a half?
On healthcare, the healthcare debacle. Don't let that be swept under the rug. And, the key issues that people are concerned about, 7 out of 10 Americans think we're on the wrong track because of our fiscal irresponsibility, our immigration policies, and our foreign policies, as well as what we're doing with our military. And then on another level, people are very concerned about, our electric grid, the fact that we're not protecting it, the fact that we've abandoned space. And in the future, he who controls space will control the earth. These are issues that will have huge impact on us going into the future.
Very good. Dr. Ben Carson, it's an honor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Thank you for giving us some time today. Well, it's refreshing. And I love to hear him preach that message. I hope that Donald Trump is listening to his advice there. When we come back,